Brilliant. We'll make a start. Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Nathan Godfrey. I am a member of staff at the Working Class Movement Library. So thank you all for joining us for the Engels Memorial Lecture for this year. The Engels Memorial Lecture is delivered every year. It's a partnership event brought to you by the Working Class Movement Library and Marx Memorial Library. I'm just going to start with a bit of housekeeping, and then I'm going to talk to you a bit about the Working Class Movement Library, and then I'll be handing over to Marjorie Mayo. Marjorie
Um,
is a trustee at the Marx Memorial Library. She'll be chairing today's event in lieu of Mary Davis, who unfortunately could no longer be with us. So Marjorie will introduce the Marx Memorial Library, then she'll introduce Manfred, and then Manfred will kick off with his lecture. So in terms of housekeeping, um, Manfred's lecture should last around half an hour. It will be followed by a Q&A. If you have any questions, please do just pop them in the chat. And at the end of Manfred's lecture, I'll be handing those questions over to Marjorie, and she'll be reading them when Manfred is finished. If you have any questions in general about the event, you can also pop them in the chat. And during the event, I'll be popping information about the Working Class Movement Library and the Marx Memorial Library in the chat as well for your information. And the event is being recorded and it's going to be shared on the Working Class Movement Library's YouTube channel in the coming week. With the Q&A, if you don't want your name to be mentioned during that for the recording, just let us know. And just checking my notes in case I've forgotten anything. Oh, yeah, finally, I almost forgot to mention, we don't have a webinar facility for our Zoom account, so you're all on mute. Please, well, keep it that way. And yeah, as I said, if you have any questions, just use the chat. And to let you know a bit about the Working Class Movement Library, um, the Working Class Movement Library is an independent library and archive. We care for and give access to our library and archive collection that covers 200 years of working class history. The library was founded in the 1950s by Edmund and Ruth Frau, and we support research, organizing, and community projects and provide a meeting space for activist and community groups. We offer tours, events, and exhibitions, and continue to develop our collection. So yeah, that's all from me. I'm now going to hand over to Marjorie to introduce the Marx Memorial Library and to introduce Manfred. Thank you.
okay, thanks very much, Nathan, and a very warm welcome to everybody from Marx Memorial Library. We're really very proud to work in partnership with the Working Class Library. So this is a great opportunity, this lecture together. Just going to say something about Marx Memorial Library and Worker School for those who don't know it. It was founded in 1933, which of course was a very crucial year because it was not just the anniversary of Marx's death, but also when book burning was taking place under the Nazis. So the library and worker school was founded with the aim of advancing education, knowledge and learning in all aspects of the science of Marxism, the history of socialism and the working class movement. At the heart of the British labour movement for over 90 years, the library is home to a unique collection of published and archival sources on related subjects, including trade unionism, peace and solidarity, and national liberation movements, and the Spanish Civil War. We have a very vibrant education program, both online and in person in the library, subjects ranging from Marxist political economy to socialist art. The library itself is a historic building rooted in Clerkenwell's radical tradition, and we are charity. So we particularly like to encourage you, if you're not already a member, please do join up and take part in our events. Just look at the website and it's all very straightforward. So please do join us. Okay. So now it's my privilege and pleasure to introduce Dr. Manfred Sohn, whose biographical details say was born in 1955 and has been a member of the German Communist movement since 1977. He's a long-standing trade union member. He was a member of a workers' council in an insurance company, and he's now retired. Manfred has worked as a member of the party executive of the German Communist Party and was a member of Parliament of Lower Saxony during his years as member of the party, the Left, Die Linke. He's now chairman of the Marx-Engels Foundation in Wuppertal, Engels' birthplace, and he's published a number of books and articles, most of the articles in Communist Weekly. I'm not going to try and pronounce it in German, but anyway, Manfred, we're very, very delighted to welcome you. Over to you.
Oh, if you could unmute yourself. Sorry, Manfred.
Can you unmute him, Nathan?
Yeah, just looking to do it now. 1 second.
Now.
There you are. We can hear you now,
Sorry.
Manfred. So you're good to start.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I just put me out. Can you see me?
Yep.
All right. Then I just talk because I have a blank screen now, but hopefully if you can see me, that's enough for the first. Yes, thank you very much for this invitation and for the very warmly introduction. It's for me both an honor and a challenge for me because of my little bit deteriorated English. I have been in England several times, about 10 and 15 years ago, often visiting the Marx Memorial Library and having received very comradely and very friendly advices from Mary Davis to improve my English a little bit, but hopefully it will be enough to bring you what I want to say today. I have to talk about optimism. That seems a little bit crazy, isn't it? Look at Germany. Since 1989, the Marxist left in our country is, at least seen from the outside, a beaten movement. The strongest part is still the DKP, the German Communist Party, with not more than 3,000 members and a weekly, this is the weekly Unsere Zeit, Marsch mentioned, with approximately 5,000 copies in a people of 84 million. That's a drop in the ocean. I suppose the situation in the United Kingdom is similar to that. And congratulations at that point to your Congress the week before last week. Why then saying something about optimism? I would like to give 3 introducing remarks. First, something about the roots of our optimism in the work of Karl Marx, and in my opinion, even a little bit deeper digged. I will try to explain it later why. Friedrich Engels. Second introducing remark would be something about the development of our movement since the creation of the Communist Manifesto. And third, at the end, something about expectations for the development of the old imperialistic states like Britain and Germany, and our tasks of students and followers of Marx and Engels. First, we all know the Manifesto of the Communist Party, written 1847 and 48, and first published in London in February 1848. And we all know the gist of optimism with which this historic document is written. But at its beginning, it was a document read, sometimes admired, by fewer people as we are today. When Friedrich Engels wrote the preface of the 4th German edition, by the way, also written in London, this introduction, this preface was written on the 1st of May, 1890. And there he could point to development made up until that year. Now comes the first of 3 quotations. Of course, because I'm the chairman of this foundation, I always have to quote a little bit about Marx and Engels, and I will give 3 quotations within my lecture. This quotation is from this preface for the Communist Manifesto. Working men of all countries unite, but few voices responded when we proclaimed these words to the world 40 years ago on the eve of the first Paris Revolution, in which the proletariat came out with demands of its own. On September the 28th, 1864, however, the proletarians of most of the Western European countries joined hands in the International Working Men's Association of glorious memory. True, the International itself lived only 9 years. But that the eternal union of the proletarians of all countries created by it is still alive and lives stronger than ever. There's no better witness than this day. It's the 1st of May. Because today, as I write these lines, the European and American proletariat is reviewing its fighting forces, mobilized for the first time, mobilized as one army under one flag for one immediate aim, the standard 8-hour working day to be established by legal enactment as proclaimed by the Geneva Congress of the International in 1866 and again by the Paris Workers' Congress in 1889. And today's spectacle will open the eyes of the capitalists and landlords of all countries to the fact that today the working men of all countries are united indeed, if only Marx were still by my side to see this with his own eyes. End of this quotation. This race, Engels described, came not out of nothing. Its roots lay in the discovery of the inner laws of the development of mankind, compromised by Marx in his preface to the Critique of Political Economy, second quotation, that was written in 1859. I presume you all know it, but nevertheless, I will read this short paragraph. The mode of production of material life conditions, the general process of social, political, and intellectual life conditions, the general process. It is not the consciousness of men that determines their existence, but their social existence that determines their consciousness. At a certain stage of development, the material productive forces of society come into conflict with the existing relations of production, or, this merely expresses the same thing in legal terms, with the property relations within the framework of which they have operated hitherto. From forms of development of the productive forces, these relations turn into their fetters. Then begins an area of social revolution. I will come back to this word, area of social revolution. The changes in the economic foundations lead sooner or later, I think this is important, sooner or later, to the transformation of the whole immense superstructure. End of this quotation. I would like to point to 3 aspects of this paragraph. First, this is, in my opinion, still a precise description of the era of human history we all live in, as both our parents and grandparents lived in, and presumably our children and grandchildren will live in. But it is a precise description. But Marx and Engels, which comes out of a lot of letters of them, expected this transformation of the whole superstructure during their lifetime. This was not the case because of reasons which I'll try to explain later. This was, as we as Marxists are allowed to say, error number 1. The second error was that the second error was the expectation of this transformation would take place on a national level within the most developed countries of their time. That means England, France, maybe other developed countries of the second half of the 19th century. And the idea was, after this breakthrough, because of the activities of the working class movements in England, France, and the rest of the Western Europe half continent, and maybe in the United States as well, the other countries could follow this path to socialism and build an economy of the whole world on a basic of socialistic and capitalistic principles. But as a matter of fact, the working class in these countries failed to get leadership in the further development of their countries, with consequences we still have to bear today. But in its core, this paragraph still describes the development and the era we are in, all in, with only two changes. First is the process of transformation needs not decades, but centuries. And second, the process doesn't take place on a national level, but takes place in front of our eyes on the international level, the level of the whole globe. This is a level of class struggle today. Before I try to examine that, let me hint to another source of our historical optimism. As you surely all know, there was a kind of decision of labor between Marx and Engels. The first of both threw himself to economic laws, the second to the laws of nature. Engels stopped writing his big, that was thought as his big work, on his Dialektik der Natur, Dialectic of Nature, after the death of his comrade, to finish publishing The Capital. He wrote, "This is more important now as to finish my writing about Dialektik der Natur." What he has written about development of nature, which includes mankind, of course, was written between 1873 and 1883. He was in his 50s then, and published only 1925, so Lenin couldn't read that. But what he wrote there, in my opinion, is a core of optimism, and at least of mine. And now comes the last, a little bit longer quotation from Dialectic of Nature. With man, we enter history. Animals also have a history, that of their descent and gradual evolution to their present position. This history, however, is made for them, and insofar as they themselves take part in it, this occurs without their knowledge and desire. On the other hand, the more the human beings become removed from animals in the narrower sense of the word, the more they make their history themselves consciously. The less becomes the influence of unforeseen effects and uncontrolled forces on this history, and the more accurately does the historical result correspond to the aim laid down in advance. If, however, we apply this measure to human history, to that of even the most developed peoples of the present day, we find that there still exists here a colossal disproportion between the proposed aims and the results arrived at. See at COP30, for example. That unforeseen effects predominate, and that the uncontrolled forces are far more powerful than those set into motion according to plan. And this cannot be otherwise as long as the most essential historical activity of man, the one which has raised them from the animal to the human stage, and which forms the material foundation of all their other activities, namely the production of their requirements of life, that means in our day social production, is above all subject to the interplay of unintended effects from uncontrolled forces, and achieves its desired end only by way of exception, but much more frequently the exact opposite. In the most advanced industrial countries, we have subdued the forces of nature and pressed them into the service of mankind. We have thereby infinitely multiplied production, so that a child now produces more than 100 adults previously did. And what is the result? increasing overwork and increasing misery of the masses, and every 10 years a great collapse. Darwin did not know what a bitter satire he wrote on mankind, and especially on his own countrymen, when he showed that free competition, the struggle for existence, which the economists celebrate as the highest historical achievement, is a normal state of the animal kingdom. Only conscious organization of social production, in which production and distribution are carried on in a planned way, can lift mankind, not a people of one nation, can lift mankind above the rest of the animal world as regards the social aspect, in the same way that production in general has done this for mankind in the specifically biological aspect. Historical development makes such an organization daily more indispensable, but also with every day more possible. From it will date a new epoch of history, in which mankind itself, and with mankind all branches of its activity, and particularly natural science, will experience an advance that will put everything preceding it in the deepest shade. End of this last quotation for today. Again, what he describes is still the time we live in. And again, the question, why we in the European West, the home turf of Marx and Engels in their ripe years, lost the leadership in this development. The answer gave Lenin in his imperialist studies. These are the main studies and other books and works. No more quotations on this point, but this research gave, and the research of Rosa Luxemburg, by the way, as well, in my opinion, this both gave the answer. In very short sentences, the ruling classes used a mixture of repression against socialist movement and bribery of huge parts of the working classes in their countries to avoid revolution within their borders. What enabled them to bribe money? The answer is imperialism. The brutal oppression of the colonized world gave them the means to corrupt huge parts of their own working class. This process has, up to now, three main consequences. First consequence, the core of the revolutionary movement wandered from the highest developed capitalist countries to the most oppressed, with the strongest revolutionary movement, first Russia in the first half of the last century, then China in the second half. Second consequence, what should have been the task of a socialist world economy, the creation of a one world economics and one destiny economic sphere for all, the mankind is a central word in the paragraph I quoted from Engels. This creation of the one world economy took not place under socialist government, but took place instead under capitalist rule. Insofar, we can see imperialism as a kind of perverted socialism. Third consequence, now the huge transformation which mentioned Marx in the quoted preface of Critique of Political Economy develops on a global process of decline in the once mightyful imperialistic West. That means West Europe plus his US-American branch. An ascent of the BRICS under the leadership of communist-ruled People's Republic of China. That's the process we are in. Let's have a look to some simply figures. We all together started as a movement of some dozen men and a few women in the back rooms of pubs in London and Manchester. We gained development leading to meetings with hundreds and thousands of working men and women in the biggest halls of London or Berlin, half a century later, what Engels mentioned, 1890. Sorry, I caught a cold a little bit. But even that movement was not able to gain state power, and therefore the power to set the tone of the day-to-day life of a people. That changed only and for the very short time of 72 days during the Commune of Paris, 1871, a city of then 1.5 million people. They, as you all know, were crushed. 30,000 of the people were killed as a punishment to create another type of society. This heavy defeat was followed by a kind of political depression of huge parts of the left in the dark days which followed that defeat. This period of recovery lasted more than 40 years until the Bolsheviks succeeded in 1917 in the second attempt to build a socialistic society in Europe, leading to changes in the day-to-day life, not for 72 days, but now for 72 years, and not for 1.5, but for 150 million people. We were defeated again, but not without reaching the baton of this relay race to other people far in the East. In spite of our defeat in East Europe and the Asian part of Russia, the core figure now is not 1.5, not 150 million, but 1,500 million people now live in countries where the official aim in their constitution is socialism, and the understanding of socialism is the one developed by Marx and Engels in London and Manchester. And that should be a broken down movement? No. We are a sometimes beaten movement, but not a broken down one. That's, in my opinion, a huge difference. If you are beaten, you can try again. If you are broken down, it's over. In my opinion, we are on the way to become the winner of history, and we ought to behave as such women and men. First of all, that means great responsibility, apart from the question, how strong are you now in your country? We are responsible for the future of our people. And that's my last case for today. Within this era of revolution we are in the chapter of finalizing the decolonization. It's totally clear for me, at least, there is no chance for communism, even for highly developed socialism in any part of the world before breaking the backbone of USA-EU imperialism. That's the main global task for the next decades. What does that mean for the people of 68 million of Great Britain and the 84 million of Germany? Obviously, two things happen in our days, both in the United Kingdom and Germany. First, the sources of bribery dry up. We are not on the ascent, but we are on decline. Second, while in the 19th and 20th century, the economies, first of Britain, but also Germany and USA, could produce things like steam engines, railway lines, cars, planes, tanks, battleships, which states like India or China could not produce, simply could not produce. They weren't able to do that. Now, the fundamental situation is there is no industrial device, really not a single one, which the economy of Germany can produce and that of China cannot. Maybe you can judge it, this is similar in the United Kingdom as well. What is the result of these two fundamental changes? The result is decline in the standard of life of our two peoples. And by the way, of people in France, Italy, and so on as well. This will, on the long run, lead to rebellion. In our time, because of our weakness, this rebellion takes place in kind of perverted rebellion, shown in the rise of the AfD, the Alternative for Germany in Germany, and the chauvinist movements in the United Kingdom. Our task is to change this perverted rebellion into real rebellion to get connection to the main developments of world history, which still is on the track Karl and Friedrich discovered first here in the United Kingdom. Thank you for listening to me. So now I stop my aria again or not?
Okay, well, thank you very, very much indeed. A very stimulating, thought-provoking talk. I've just seen Nathan's highlighted one question so far in the chat. So maybe we start with that, and then as the questions come in, we'll take them in groups if that's okay, Manfred. So the first question we've got is, can I please ask what writings by Rosa Luxemburg would Manfred recommend?
The first is the history of national economy. It's her main work, and there the core of this work, in my opinion, is the following: that she said, with critique on Marx, that it could. She made a critique on the second volume of the Capital, which is not in all points correct, I think, but she pointed to one connection. She said Marx and Engels thought there could be kind of only capitalist development in United Kingdom or Germany on the national level. But if you could look to world economy, this is not possible. Capitalist countries need huge non-capitalist areas to survive and to spread and to blossom. And so capitalist development on its own feet without a big hinterland, big backyard of non-developed capitalist, not developed capitalist countries, this is impossible. The capitalist countries need the oppression of with great part of not core capitalist countries. That is written in the, I don't know that, wait a moment. I'm quite sure that it will be there in English translation as well. I only know this collected works here in German, and this is her main work about the development of national economy in the world. That's the core answer of your question.
Okay, thank you so much. We've now got two questions. I'm going to read them both out because I think they maybe have some connections. The first of these two is, what role does ideology and culture play in the class struggle? And the second of this group of questions is, what lessons can we learn from communism in power in China, DPRK, Cuba, Vietnam, and Laos?
Yeah, the first is, there was a word before culture. What is it?
Ideology and culture.
Ideology and culture, yes.
Yeah.
To the first question, to be honest, I'm not sure. What is a precise role of ideological culture? I think it's a huge role, but in my opinion, the core of the struggle are still the economic question. Let me give you a hint. as the German Communist Party was much more stronger in western part of Germany, we have about 50,000 members before 1989, and we have a very vibrant cultural scene with very wonderful songwriters, Hannes Wader and Begenhardt, and we make big concerts, and we have kind of a cultural hegemony in parts of at least the a little bit left-thinking people in Germany. But when then a normal German proletarian made a journey to his brother or cousin or friend in the eastern part of Germany, he comes with his VW Käfer or the Golf, the main, the mostly sold car in western part of Germany, to the east, and then this tends be close together with a Trabant, the most bought car in eastern part of Germany. And the result was crystal clear. The eastern proletarian admired the Golf and not the other way around. That's it. And you can't be nice as you want, cultural, ideological, if, as a matter of fact, the productive power is not the same as in the capitalist countries, or even minor, you have lost. That's what Lenin said. The core of winning the struggle against capitalism is the development of productive power. And so I think that this is a huge effect of ideological culture, especially when it comes to the final struggle. Then you can't win without having the main positions on the cultural scene of your nation. But the fundamental changes and the fundamental effects of the relation of power is still always a question of productive power and economy. And that leads to the second block of questions. What lessons we have to learn from China? We, at least in Germany, have a big discussion within the communist movement and the socialist movement as well about what to say about China. In my opinion, we can't learn so much from them, because our way to socialism in Western Europe will be a complete other one. The Chinese and the Vietnamese as well, and Cuba as well, have made one tremendous effort and have made tremendous victories in one point. They were successful to stand the brutal imperialistic efforts to crush them. For example, we in Western Europe, we have still the thinking there was a terrible world war. It lasted from 1st of September 1939 to 8th of May 1945. But that's wrong. The struggle between the most aggressive imperialistic powers and the movements of the people trying to stand this attack lasted from 1931 in the Manchurian to September 1945 when Japan capitulated, and had its aftermath until 1949 when the People's Republic of China was founded. So the period of this world war was not 1939 to 1945, but as a matter of fact, from 1931 to 1949. And and they were able, under the leadership of the communists, as a matter of fact, under the leadership of the communists, to fight them through a path to a planned socialist economy with more and more market elements. And a core event for them was 1989, when they see the collapse of the Soviet Union, the German Democratic Republic, and all the other states in Eastern Europe. And their consequence was, I try to make it very short, Lenin was right. Lenin was right when he declared in the 1920s, we have to retreat for a while. And we have to make a new economic policy, the NAP. Because what we thought to go within a few years or even decades to communism is not possible. For a while, until the really high developed productive forces, better than the capitalist countries, until we haven't arrived this status, we have to build market elements, what Engels described as part of the animal kingdom. We have to build them into our development plan. There's no other way. Otherwise, we will be crushed, as in Soviet Union, GDR, and the other states. And so we have to build a longer phase, as even Lenin thought, or to say it as a German, even Walter Ulbricht thought. In GDR, we have had a similar discussion in the 1960s, where Walter Ulbricht said we have to retreat a little bit and to build an economic system with more market elements on the economic level. And and the Chinese made the consequences. The most important thing, as we learned from Lenin, said Deng Xiaoping and now Xi, is we won't stand the imperialistic powers without gaining the advantage and the overhand in the question of productive forces. Without them, we will be crushed. And that's what I think we have to learn. And in my imagine, we have the chance in the wind shadow of this huge worldwide developments to build the leftist Marxist movement in our Western European countries again to a strength we have had never before.
Thank you so much. Well, I think that takes us to, we've got two more questions here that I think maybe link. The first of these is, what strategy and tactics should we use to grow the communist movement in UK and Germany? And the next one is, how can we overcome the crisis that the communist movement in the West has been in since 1989, both ideologically and organizationally? And what role can relentless criticism and self-criticism of the meager remnants of the movement play in this?
Yeah,
Is that okay, or shall I repeat them?
Perfectly okay. I will show you another book. Short look. Where is it? No, I don't find it in my library. There is I think it's translated in English as well, from Dominic Lusordo. It is an Italian Marxist. Dominic Lusordo wrote a book about the crisis of the Western Marxism and how to get out of this crisis. And what I said in my lecture is stolen from him. He's already dead, and we are close friends, and I think it will be okay. And he argues that the Marxist movement in the West has developed in the past a little bit, how can I describe it, to look down to the terrible, struggling people who are going to free themselves from imperialism because they made mistakes, they are bloody fighters, they are often backwards compared with the economic development in the West, and so on and so on. And they thought also because Marx and Engels were children of the West European continent. They thought to be the masters of the ideological development of Marxism, but they are not. Because of what I described, the core of development of Marxism wandered to other parts of the world. And now, not they have to learn from the lefts in Western Europe, but we have to even, at least to try to learn why they are successful and we are not. And I think that brings to the first question, now make the other way around, to overcome the crisis, we have to become eager to learn why first in Russia and then in China now and Vietnam and Cuba, there were successful, even ruling communist parties, and we have not such successful and ruling communist parties in Western Europe. I hinted to some thoughts about this question. But the strategy and the tactic to overcome this is, we are still in Germany in discussion about that. We have a program of the Communist Party, which in its core, I think you are a little bit similar, anti-monopolistic strategy. To say there is now interest of the big companies and the monopolists, and they are not only in contradictory to the working class, but also to the little and middle factories and companies, the middle and little companies. And so we have to build a kind of a close relationship, not only with the working class in our countries, but also with minor and middle-sized companies in our countries, even under the threat of a new Third World War. And that is still very important, especially because our leading classes are really, I think, really they are at least playing with the thought to crush the socialist, the People's Republic of China, and to crush Russia together with them. And that's, of course, the biggest danger we are all in. And you have to do the utmost to collect every man and every woman against this danger. That is crystal clear. But on the other side, I'm not totally sure about that, what I say now, and I'm not totally sure if this is right. But I have the feeling and the thinking that in our times, what is not always the case, sometimes it is the case, the question of war and the question of class struggle are going together again. In the times before World War II, especially on the 7th World Congress of Communist Parties, which took part in Moscow, the core answer of the then development was because of the danger of war, and because of the necessity to bring together all powers against the fascist danger, the class struggle is not the first and utmost what we have to do now. But the struggle against fascism and war is the first, what we have as communists to do now. And in my opinion, because of the development of the BRICS and the rapid changing power balances in the world, in our little part, we have always to think we are really a very, very little part of the big world in Western Europe. Geographically, also with the number of people we are in. The European Union has 450 million people. That's only a part of the people one state China has. And in this part of the world we are fighting in, because of the dominance of People's Republic of China, BRICS, and so on, when we are able to avoid war, that's a conditio sine qua non. When we can avoid war, the class struggle is becoming more and more important to fulfill our task to lead our people to socialism. I think we have to bring in the mood of this is not our class, this is not our state, but we have to fight for our interests into the men and women in the different companies. Even in the company I worked in for 30 years, what I did there 30 years, like a tibetanische Gebetsmühle, like a phrase I said again and again, they have interests, we have interests. They are split up. They have their interests, we have our interests. Our interest is a decent wage, is not more than 8 days working hour, is a stable working place, is not having fear for losing this working space, to have security for our families, our children. That's our interest. And all the others, what they are said to us, please, you have to reduce your wages, please, you have to work more because our profits are in danger. That's not our interest. And so we have to build a mood of that's our interest. And we are forced to have in the closest view our aims and our interests. And let me make to this point a second remark. I just wrote in the Unsere Zeit an article about the question, what is the danger we are facing now? Is it fascism? I don't think so. I don't think there will be another fascism in Western Europe. If you look to the, not only, of course, I can understand, because of the brutality of this years of 1933 to 1945, it is understandable to see all development through the glasses of this 12 years. But that's wrong. If you look to the whole history of the imperialistic states, you can see neither the German Kaiserreich needed fascism in beginning World War I, nor the United States needed fascism to begin the Vietnam War or Iraq War or all the other wars, and so on and so on. It is, in the opinion of the ruling classes, fascism is one way. It is always a danger. They took to the fascism way, but it is not. See, to the times of 1993 to 45, the result is not that was a successful way. The result, we failed with this way, obviously. And so we have to look to all phases of our development when the ruling classes try to make an offensive against their ruling working classes of other people, or their own working classes who are in danger to get the rulership in their countries. They try to make what is the English word for that? We have the word Umbau in Germany. They try to rebuild their complete state apparatus. And we have had a similar situation where Marx and Engels wrote a lot when in the 1890s, in 1880s, 86, 70s and 80s and until 1890. In Germany, because of a crisis and because of the eagerness of Germany to become the first power on the continent, Bismarck made the so-called socialist laws. That were laws to oppress the Marxist-orientated working movement in Germany. That was no fascism. That was a number of measures. They forbid the publications of the left. They forbid the Marxist-oriented trade unions. They forbid the Social Democratic Party. They didn't forbid to be as a single person who was a socialist to be chosen as a member of parliament. So they have not crushed down everything. And in this situation, there was, like always, look to your Labour Party, there was a discussion within the social democratic movement in Germany to be not too radical, not to cry too loud class struggle, because we have to arrange with new situation. And Marx and Engels were furious about that. They wrote a so-called circular letter to the leading figures of the Social Democratic Party. The circular letter is very important, in my opinion, to say, no, in such a situation, you can't make any peace with the ruling classes. You can't make any peace with the state, which is always the state of the ruling classes. And to have to force and to thrive class struggle in every company, in every town, in every village, on every street. That's the main what they said as a strategy and tactic against the rising oppression of leftist movement in the days of 1876 to 1890. And I think we are in a similar situation. They are preparing war, of course. In England, United States, look to this terrible speech of the now Secretary of War, not more Secretary of Defense, Hexet in the United States, and they are preparing the big war against Russia and China. And they can't do this to form a militaristic and prepared to war community, neither in Germany nor in France nor in England, without oppressing the leftist movement and the working class movement. They can't. And so they have to oppress us. And there will be a time where we, and especially the younger ones from us, will face more and more oppression. That's I think that's crystal clear. But the answer is no step backward. No compromise in this question of struggle war and class war. And we have to intensify, in this situation, we have to intensify the class struggle in our countries. That's my deepest opinion.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's the end of the questions, and I think that's probably a terrific note to end up, Manfred. I don't know if you'd like to just add any further final comments or leave it there on the necessity of the class struggle.
Okay, I will leave it there, and I'm looking forward because I have some little children. They are growing up now, and that brings me into the wonderful situation to visit Britain again within the next month and years. And hopefully we can, the one or other, we can continue this conversation. I'm eager to learn from what you are doing in your country.
Well, thank you very, very much indeed. This has been an amazing event. It will be on the web pages, and there will be an article based on it. I see some hands clapping. Some people, you can't see everybody's faces, but you can see lots of hands clapping.
I see.
So
Thank you
thank
very
you
much.
very, very much indeed, Manfred. It's been a great session.
Yeah.
Very, very much appreciated.
And this is a moving moment for me, and I now click out before I begin to try. So I go off leaving. Thank you very much for all. We will see
Thank
us
you.
in this
Thank
world.
you.